welcome to Golden Rhino Games. This segment we're going to call our Hobby Talk Edition, where we actually talk about mostly things tabletop related. We're going to be going over different fun events, activities, and exciting news here at the store for Golden Rhino Games. I'm Ian, and this is Luke.
What's up?
So this weekend, we've got a bunch of different things going on. For the most part, we're going to try and focus on a few of our favorite games.
Just one or two of them.
Just one or two of them, right?
Yeah.
Warhammer Age of Sigmar, Old World, Horus Heresy, Warhammer 40K, of course, and last but certainly not least, Warmachine Mark IV. Now, at the tail end of this, we're actually going to have a special guest on, which will be really fun, but we will get to that in a bit. So, this is kind of our first run at this, so I really appreciate you guys all joining us and jumping in. The best thing about these kinds of videos is that we can actually tell you what's going on at the store, give you an insight of what activities and events are going on, but also just kind of talk about the things that we're excited about, to be perfectly honest, right? We do have a couple of events coming up that we do want to make sure you're aware of. So a couple that I'm going to bring up. Today we have our Age of Sigmar Beginners League. So we have had a lot of new people get into both Warhammer 40K and Age of Sigmar, but to really help foster the growth of Warhammer Age of Sigmar, we started up a Beginners League. It's 1,000 points, and we made it up every Saturday. There's really no commitment to it. The idea is that people can come in, play games, have fun, and just get continuous games in. We're not doing full 2K competitive. We're not trying to, list build or be super, I don't know, any of those things out of the way. All I want to do is have people come in and play games. And so far, it's been amazing. The first week we did it, we had 11 people show up. And then this week, we had 6 new people join us for our Learn to Play, and we still had 4 additional people join for the league, which has been awesome. Luke, what do you want to talk about?
Well, the main things I want to talk about when it comes to our events are some of our more narrative events we have coming up. For Horus Heresy, we've got the Battle of Beta Garmin coming up. This is going to be an all-day, 2-round event with a focus on narrative, fun mission types. So like the normal, standard RTT setup is you do 3 rounds where you pair up and you play a game against each other. We're not doing that for this.
Okay.
What we're doing is basically there's 2 groups. One group will play standard one-on-one games. Everyone else in the second group is on one table in a massive apocalypse battle. And then we switch. So round 1, you're either on the big table or the little ones, and then round 2, you switch onto the other one. Right. But like the standard one, it's 2,500 points.
2,500 points.
It's a standard game size. You can bring Lords of War, you can bring whatever, and then when you get to the Apocalypse level, you get an additional Lord of War for free, no points cost. So if you've got your Warlord Titans or your Bane Blades or things like that, bring them out, play with your toys.
So Lords of War, we could do what? Typhon heavy siege tanks?
Heavy siege tanks, the Bane Blades, anything,
Yes,
right?
Okay. Phantom Eldar Titans?
Not quite. Not quite. Unfortunately, not yet.
Gotcha, yeah. That's right. That's 40K. So.
Yep.
Oh, speaking of which, we actually have our next 2K RTT, the Rumble in the Room, this Saturday. It's going to be just like we were talking about, actually. It's a standard 2,000 point RTT. We're going to be using standard terrain layouts, using missions derived from the Pariah Nexus mission card pack. And don't worry, if you don't have your card pack, we actually still have some in stock. We got super lucky and managed to get a few extra, which is awesome.
More than a few, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, we've got quite a few left on the shelves.
To be fair, it only took them a few months to get us all to them.
Honestly.
Yeah, but no, it's great. The first event that we did was our first launch event for our event hall. And that was a full 24 people that showed up for that, which was awesome. And then actually, not to backtrack in time here, but we did just have our Conquest 2K tournament. We had 20 people show up for that, which has been awesome. I cannot stress how much and how excited I am for all these, which is great. But yeah, this Saturday, we're doing Warhammer 40K. It's a 2,000 point standard RTT, the Rumble in the Room. We will also have 2 more of those events coming up, one in March and one at the end of April. Cool. And then, yeah, was there anything else you wanted to talk about?
While we're on the 40K train, going back in time a little bit more, we've got a 4th edition event coming up. A lot of people locally have been starting to play 4th edition as kind of a more narrative, casual alternative to 10th, right? And Mike has been running the Damocles Crusade event, right? Narrating the Imperium's crusade against the Tau Empire. And the big culmination of that is coming up, I believe, this coming Sunday?
Yeah, it's this Sunday.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that'll be a big apocalypse battle where everyone who's taken part in the league can show up and play against each other in one big table.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it was super cool. I think last time we did something like this, we actually put both tables together lengthwise.
Yep.
So it was this massive square that people walked around. I think the last time I saw a big table like that with the big titans and things like you were talking about was probably circa 2007.
Yeah.
Something like that. So yeah, no, that one will be really cool. I'm looking forward to seeing that one too. And then a couple other things we got going on. Actually, for March, I'll be doing a special workshop for our John Blanche Grim Dark Painting Masterclass. So if you're not familiar, the John Blanche paint sets from Army Painter, both set 1 and set 2, come out in February. They're supposed to be here this weekend for the 22nd launch. We'll see what weather and UPS wants to actually deliver. But that being said, on March 7th, I'll be running a 3-hour-long class actually teaching you how to use those paints in a step-by-step process. And the best part about it is we actually have some Trench Crusade models that everybody is going to get to take home for that. So that is really cool. As of right now, recording this, we have 1 spot left. It is a $130 ticket, but you get both paint sets, you get the miniatures, and it's a 3-hour-long workshop. Trust me, it'll be a lot of fun.
No one buy that ticket, I want it.
We'll see. Hey, Luke, I need you to work on... I'm just...
I'll show up anyway.
Yeah, right. But then other than that, we've actually got a couple of cool Warmachine events coming up. Now, Warmachine has actually been a part of this community for a very long time, and it's really great to finally see a major comeback. I made the joke before, don't call it a comeback, it's been here for years, because it has. But this is the first time that I'm really starting to see new people and old people returning to it. Just like you happened to mention about the 4th edition Warhammer 40K stuff, this really gives me vibes of people are here to play fun games, and we want to make sure that they're enjoying the game for what it is, and not just some hardcore competitive tournament, which it can be. So first up, we've got actually this Thursday kicks off our narrative map campaign, and I'll be bringing on Zeke, aka Isaiah. Wait, strike that, reverse it, to talk about that, which will be a lot of fun. And then most importantly, on Sunday, at the same time as our Apocalypse game, we're going to be sharing the event hall for our Steamroller. It's only going to be 75 points instead of the standard 100 points, but it should be a lot of fun. We had, I think, 14 people show up for our food machine event. So if we can get that many again, that would be super cool. I'm really looking forward to that. So cool. Any last things for events?
I think that's all of them.
Okay.
Or not all of them, but the big ones for now. Right?
right.
More to come.
To be fair, that's just our tabletop miniatures events. That's not even our TCGs and RPG things like we do D&D every Wednesday night. And we've got Star Wars Unlimited coming up on Friday. So follow us on Facebook, Discord, and all the other little hashtags, find out more about that. But let's jump into the next segment. We're going to talk a little bit about hobby progress. So Luke, what have you been doing for hobby progress?
Well, the big thing I've been working on recently is my Old World Chaos Dwarf army. I didn't bring models in to show you because it's not done yet.
It's okay.
We'll show them all when they're done, but progress is being made on those.
Nice.
Someone did think ahead, I know, and brought in their models to share.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, to be fair, this literally mostly occurred this morning. So for anyone that isn't aware, or actually probably most of you would be in some way, shape, or form, but Adepticon is coming up next month. As part of that, me and a few of my friends are going to be traveling down there for the 4-player 2-day event for Age of Sigmar, the team battle, which will be really cool. I'm personally working on my Seraphon models right now, and I've been playing around testing out a bunch of different colors. I am a definite hobby butterfly when it comes to a lot of different things, so I jump back and forth all the time. So I started this army last year, and it's not until now that I'm really focusing on it. And what I did was I have worked on my Agrodon Lancers first. I've been really enjoying that, starting out with, what is this? Oh yeah, Ethermatic Blue contrast paint, which is great, but then I realized later on that I wanted to do a really cool jade-like weapon for the Seraphon's Azurite blades. It's cool, but it's a lot of green on green, so I've been playing around with a couple of different colors. What I discovered is a contrast paint that I wasn't really familiar with, which was Briar Queen Chill. This has a little bit of a milky consistency, very similar to Night Hunt Gloom. And if you're not familiar with contrast paints or speed paints or quick paints in general, don't worry about that. We will do news and stuff on that later on. But what I discovered with this is that it actually works as a very, very good medium-like paint to transition between a very stark contrasting color like black and white grayscale or slap chop, which is how I start a lot of my models, all the way up to those little brighter and finer colors. So I was able to actually increase a lot of the opacity when it comes to my white simply by using this transitionary color, and now my weapons and rider stand out more than just my Agrodon does. I was actually pretty happy with it this morning. So 45 minutes in the morning, paint a little bit every day if you can, right? So
little bits of progress.
Yes, absolutely. On that note, though, I did mention that as a bit of a hobby butterfly, though. I have been bouncing back and forth between this, Old World, and some 30K stuff that I've been working on. But for Old World, I know almost nothing. So I have actually started working on Beasts of Chaos, but are they Beastmen?
They're Beastmen back in Old World.
Okay, so they're Beastmen back in Old World. So, irony for you, I never played Fantasy Battle back in the day. I actually got into this hobby when Warhammer 40K, I guess it was 3rd edition, and like 2 weeks later, 4th edition came out. So to give you a time period of when I got into it. So I never really touched Fantasy Battle, but I'm starting to work on my Beastmen now. And I have them all on round bases, so the irony is now I'm the one that's removing them from the bases and putting them back on squares. So woohoo! It took 10 years, but here we are. We're back in full circle again. But what I discovered is that removing the models from their bases cleanly and easily has been really difficult, or at least I thought it would be. So what I was telling you earlier, actually, before we started the show, is that I have a pair of the God Hand Cutters. I want to say it's Mr. Hobby brand. No, that's not right. It'll come back to me when it no longer matters. It's a really expensive pair of cutters. It's designed actually for gun plug kits and ABS plastic, so models like Rubicon and things like that. It is a block on one side and it is a knife on the other, so it makes very clean cuts. And I've been able to use those to snip off the hooves and remove the base really cleanly and easily. And that's been really exciting. So looking forward to getting those on the table eventually. So cool. All right. Next up, we've got exciting news.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, what you got for me?
So new model releases. Keeping on the Old World track, I know we're talking about it a lot. I'm more of a dark elf person myself.
Oh, really?
Personally, but those high elf models, I think are really fantastic, right? And it's nice to see some of the older kits that we didn't get to see a whole lot of back in the day. Stuff like the Murworm and their the Stormweaver, I believe it's called, the new mage that they're giving for the armies of infamy. That is an old model that they're bringing back, right?
I didn't know that.
So. New release, old models, but they're still really cool, and it's nice for people who, like me, got into the hobby relatively recently, right? I wasn't around when these first came out, but now I still have a chance to get them, and that's really nice to see. Other models that are, other things that are just now coming out, that new Angron model for 30K. We all knew that was coming, sooner than later.
So, I'm not gonna lie, I don't know why I didn't expect that to come out.
Well, because
zinged right over my head.
They released Fulgrim Transfigured, and we all kind of figured, okay, they talked a little bit about we're gonna go through the rest of the Primarchs and give us new models, because the first one they actually released in that series was Horus.
Yes.
The new Horus model.
Yeah, which
right?
I have that one.
And it looks fantastic, but I think that flew over a lot of people's heads, or kind of under your radar, because the new Horus model and the old Horus model look very similar.
Yeah.
Right? The new Fulgrim model and the old Fulgrim model look very different, because one's a Demon Primarch and one's not. And so we all expected, Demon Primarch Angron to come out. He looks fantastic. I love him. But Lotara Sarin is also coming out.
Yeah.
And that...
I apologize, I literally have no idea who that is.
So she is the admiral in charge of the Conqueror, Angron's flagship. Right? So during 30K, during the whole Horus Heresy, I'm going to restrain myself from lore dumping right now, but just to go a little bit, she was basically the restraining factor for the World Eaters, keeping them in line and making sure they still deployed as a coherent force, right? When they were going full berserk and let's just go off and kill the enemy, she was like, no, I actually need some of you to stay on the ship so we don't get killed by ultramarine boarders, or, make sure Angron doesn't run off and get shot to death by a Titan, right? Yeah. Kept them functioning and coherent, along with Karn.
Yeah.
I was never expecting to see a model for her because she's not a frontline fighter.
Yeah, that's very
So it's really cool to see her get one, and also for them to be giving her playable rules. I think that's fantastic. I hope we see more of that.
Yeah, for sure.
So
yeah, and then I won't lie, jumping ahead, 10,000 years. The 40K Emperor's Children stuff, when that drops, I'm
gonna be fantastic.
super excited for that. To be fair, I've been collecting Chaos Space Marines since like 2006. Like, it's been one of my back burner armies I've really enjoyed, and I have always painted my scheme as purple and gold, which is the pre-heresy, or I guess heresy color scheme for Emperor's Children. Calling my own, though, the Phoenician Lords, which are kind of a subsect to that. So when that army comes out, that'll be super great. And then I guess there's some talk about them merging the demons and the rubrics, so to speak. Is that what they call them? Or legionnaires? I forget.
The legionnaires. Yeah, the Chaos Space Marines.
Yeah, they're actually merging those codexes into one again. So we're going to see Emperor's Children come out with the Slanesh demons, and that'll be a book. And then Khorne with World Eaters.
Yep. Nurgle with Death Guard.
Yep.
So on and so forth.
Yep. And then you were talking about Tzeentch.
Yeah, because like I play Tzeentch a lot. I play Chaos in general, but like Tzeentch is my personal favorite. And like back in like 8th and 9th edition, you could combine the two.
Yes.
Like you could play Slanesh Demons and Emperor's Children alongside each other, but there wasn't a lot of like rules synergy with that. And so that's one thing I'm actually really excited to see and get a chance to play with is I can put a Lord of Change down next to an Exalted Sorcerer, and they actually do things with each other now. They're part of the same army, which makes more sense to me than the alternative.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. I can definitely hear some griping in the background, but from me and...
Which I think is fair, right? Like, a lot of people have invested a lot of time and effort into fully coherent demon armies, but we also know that those aren't fully going away between the Index detachment that they released and the Grotmist detachment that they released, right? Is it a full book? No. Is your army that you put time in going to disappear entirely?
No.
Also no.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to tell anyone they can't complain, but I'm not going to tell anyone that, you know, doomsday is upon us.
Yeah.
So.
No, I'm legitimately excited for that. I think it'll be really good to see some actual built-in synergies again.
Oh yeah.
To be fair, I wish there were more allies that worked like that in the game systems. In general. And I don't just mean Warhammer, right? Like, I think there's a lot of fun diversity within building your models and your army and your collections the way you want to make it both pleasing on the table to look at as well as play with, right?
Yeah.
So, cool. All right, so on that note, we're going to jump into a fun little topic here. We're going to call our armchair general, if you haven't heard that term before. Mostly speaking, what we're going to be talking about today is, well, movement, deployment, and tactics and things like that. I mentioned earlier that I have been working on my Seraphon for Age of Sigmar, and literally just today I actually discovered a new rule. Well, not even a new rule, it was new to me. When you play Age of Sigmar, there's essentially two ways that you score points now, which is fantastic. You have your primary objectives, which you are going to go around, and depending on what the mission is, you're going to hold one, hold two, hold more, whatever it may say, and you can score up to usually 6 points. And then you have a battle tactic, which gives you an additional 4 points. So nice even 10 points, which is fun. Did not realize this, but you don't have to choose a battle tactic. You can just opt not to, which means that you're also not attempting it, which means that it's available for you later on in the game, which is kind of an interesting prospect that I never really put together, because from my perspective, I'm like, play the game, do the thing, score the points, right? Roll the dice, have fun. And this is just another kind of tool in the toolbox, which makes things interesting. So I was curious, what opinions do you have on that?
Well, because I like it because it's one of those things where it lets you save, you know, a tactic, a strategy for later in the game, where you start and you're like, I don't know if I can do this right now. I don't know if I have the tools to. I haven't done enough damage to my opponent's army to make it really viable, so let's wait until it's, you know, more accessible. But I think overall that kind of speaks to, you know, one of the things about Wargamers is that we all play a lot of different editions or different games, and it's very easy.
Fair.
It's very easy to not read the rule book specifically and like look at the way things are phrased and understand, okay, it's saying in the command phase, I can choose a secondary, or secondaries are chosen in the command phase.
Or you must.
There's a difference between those two things, right? Another great example of that is in Old World I discovered recently. If I had told you, just take your best guess, what does the move through cover special rule do? Best guess.
To be fair, I have literally not read the rule book at all. Couldn't even tell you how to move in the first place. But if I had to take a guess based on every other game that I've played, it's going to ignore some kind of penalty when moving through terrain, like at all times, right? Like I'm going to move through and I don't suffer the -2 to my charge or whatever it used to be back in 40K, or drop the lowest dice or whatever it may be. I don't know. So what does it do?
The funny thing is, you're actually on the money with both of those things. Kind of.
Okay.
Because in Old World, difficult terrain does two things. One is it reduces your movement characteristic by 1.
Okay.
And 2, when you're charging, normally what you do is roll 2d6 and add it to your movement characteristic, right?
Add both dice?
The highest,
okay,
to clarify.
okay.
You add the highest.
Okay.
And so that makes it so you tend towards the higher of the average. You're going to see 4, 5, 6 more often than not. But when you're charging,
your rolls.
yeah, when you're charging through difficult terrain, instead you get the -1, movement characteristic, and you take the lowest of the die. And so that really messes up your ability to charge because now it's not, I can expect 4-inch move, I can expect roughly an 8 to 10-inch charge. You can expect maybe a 5 to 7.
Right.
And that's a lot worse.
Yeah.
The move through cover special rule, kind of like you were saying, in most editions of these games would be something like ignore the effects of difficult terrain. In Old World, it only allows you to ignore the effects of the -1 movement characteristic. You're still taking the lower of the 2 die. And that's something that I only realized recently, a year after this edition's been released, and I've been playing it, almost weekly.
Yeah.
Right? So,
Wow. Okay,
read rule books, kids.
Yeah, read your rules, right? Yeah, don't follow YouTubers and try to learn things from them. Anyway, so moving on.
We say as we try and teach you things.
Yes, right. Anyway, I think kind of the proof in the pudding there, right, is that playing the games is really important because you learn from a lot of mistakes that you make, and I mean that's why I really enjoy events. To be perfectly honest, I learn more from going to 1 3-round event than I will ever standing here talking with people or whatever it may be. But in both cases, at the end of the day, read your rule book, clarify things. I'll never forget being able to watch 30-something games played in a week, and then I'd be able to sit there and kind of comb over the rules and be like, oh yeah, that was right, or oh no, that was not right. And so yeah, today's epiphany is brought to you by the General's Handbook, right? So yeah, it's pretty interesting. But yeah, so that was kind of the battle tactic and movements portion that I wanted to discuss. What did you have as far as deployment goes?
Well, there's been a phrase that's often been thrown around about Warhammer in general, but it really applies to the fantasy games, is the game is won or lost, if you're not me, in the deployment or movement phase, right? Where in most Warhammer games like 40K and Age of Sigmar, you have a lot of freedom with how you move. You can move up, down, left, right, diagonally, backwards, however you want. And there's no penalty for it, right?
Yeah.
And that gives you a lot of freedom in how you move and how you engage your opponent. Old World is more about, basically you only ever really move forward, right? And if you want to move backwards or to the side, there's penalties for that. You can only move so far, you have to wheel and that eats into your movement, right? Changing the angle matters a lot.
So I'm going to pause you for 2 seconds because I just kind of want to make sure that I'm getting this perspective. Because when I think of things like 30K and Old World, I think of narrative, what's the best way to put this?
Historicals?
Yeah, historicals, right? So like the narrative history of something actually bleeding through into the rule set, right? So when you say that you have a penalty to moving left or right and backwards, right, as opposed to Warhammer 40K where you move 360 degrees, do whatever you want, right? Those games are more game piece oriented, whereas this is more historical oriented. The reason it's like that is because it's kind of representing or replicating marching tactics.
Exactly, moving information. Get 30 of your buddies and stand in a square, and then try to, in an organized fashion, take 6 steps to the right. It's going to take you a lot more time than it would be to just go forward, right? It depends on how coordinated you and your friends are, I guess.
I was just going to say, cue the Cupid shuffle.
Yes.
No, that's really interesting, though. It's like, I really didn't think about that. So, yeah.
But the reason that matters a lot more for movement and deployment matters a lot more is because you are so much more restricted, it actually gives you a lot more control over what your opponent does. Because now their movement has to adapt to yours. So like my favorite example of this is screening units, right? This is a concept that exists across every war game ever. Everything, right? The idea of putting out a unit in front to eat a charge or to get shot first while your more valuable expensive pieces sit behind. And usually that's just blocking movement, right? You can't charge this unit I've got behind because I've got these cheap guys in front. In fantasy and Old World, you can actually have it set so, okay, I'm going to move my screening unit forward at an angle, so now when you charge them and you align to that combat, you're not facing towards, my more expensive units in the back that I don't want you charging. You're going off to the side where there's nothing. And so if you do win that fight, which you probably will, and then overrun and charge forward, that expensive unit that you just threw at me is somewhere off to the side where I don't have to worry about it for a turn. Right.
Or potentially you're opening up their flank.
Or you're opening up their flank,
wow,
right?
That's cool.
And that matters even more so in a game like Old World with the whole fallback and good order system, where maybe you don't win that fight enough to break me. Now I just move back a little bit, and now you're still engaged in that combat, and I've got my expensive unit in your flank.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I could actually see that. That can be used in a couple of different games, right? Conquest, Last Argument of Kings automatically comes to my mind.
Any rank and flank game, you're going to see that.
Is there another one? Oh, yeah, there are a couple. Yeah, because
there's a few.
Yeah, my apologies. Yeah, it's just very much there's only the two, right? No,
there's the two big ones.
Yeah,
there are other
Kings
ones.
of War and some other ones out there too. Yeah, yeah. I've never really had the chance to look at those rule sets in depth like that. So that's actually really cool. Yeah, yay, tactics. So up next, we're actually going to be doing a community spotlight where I'm bringing on Isaiah, aka Zeke, where we talk about our Warmachine events, activities, and really what makes Warmachine super cool. All right, and for our community spotlight, our very first one, kind of, in fact, I've got Isaiah, Zeke with me today. So,
hello, everybody.
Yeah, thanhes for coming on, man. I really appreciate it. So,
yeah, absolutely.
So the main reason I've got you here today is to talk really a lot about Warmachine.
Never heard of it.
You're killing me, Smalls. You're killing me. Okay, so to talk about Warmachine, though, because when I got into the tabletop hobby, right? I'm not even just gonna say the W name, right? But all of tabletop hobby games. Warmachine was always right there in the periphery for me, and I cannot tell you how many times I bought models for conversion purposes or use, and I never played the game until now. So from my perspective, I'm seeing Warmachine kind of have almost this Phoenix-like effect, where the old editions burned so hard, so hot for so long that now that this new edition is out, it's just like smoldering embers. But those embers are really starting to take flame now, which is really cool because we're seeing a lot of play in store, and I'm really thankful for it. So.
Oh no, so you're definitely not wrong. I mean, when the game first came out in 2001, and then traveled through its first iteration to the second iteration, which was, everyone will usually vote that is the strongest time during that time, both for narrative and then what it became. It was a game that was, people talked about it rivaling, the big game.
It did. You could say that.
Yeah,
honestly, from my perspective as a customer back then, it was Warmachine and Warhammer 40K.
Yep.
That was the full view that I had as the scope of tabletop miniatures.
No, absolutely.
And I think you can really say that. And that was probably 2011 to 2015.
15. Yep.
Right. Yeah.
Yep. And then we took a dive with the last edition. We won't deny that, but we learned a lot during that point. And then now into this edition, people are definitely taken back by the changes initially. When we first saw the changes, oh no, the units got smaller. Oh no, we're now changing how we do our movement base, kind of borrowing from Star Wars Legion a little bit. And people were like, oh no, this is bad. But then when you sat down and played, you're like, oh, this is smoother now. A unit feels like a unit. We're doing these type of cool things. We're now focusing again on the big cool jacks that the game was designed around. Warmachine is all about the war jacks, the war beast, all those fun things. And for people who don't know, Hordes is still here. It's just all under the umbrella of Warmachine. That's all it is now.
Yeah, I'll jump in there actually, because that's one thing that I really appreciate. When I was first looking at it, finally, which was only a couple of years ago, post-pandemic, I had actually taken the 3rd edition rulebook with me on vacation, and I took the Hordes rulebook, and in the back of it is you can play, and really what they did for this is they were like, let's simplify it. It's one world, it's one universe. So it's one Iron Kingdom, and it's the Outwastes, or what? Sorry, it's not to sidetrack.
Yeah, no. So the Iron Kingdom was kind of for us all, and then of course the outside of it, where the Circle, the Trollbloods, and everything else.
Scorn.
Dead now. Sorry. Oh. God. Oh, I apologize. But there's tons of things there. So no matter what, if you have old models, you can still come in and play the game still. Right. They are still there. Maybe not all of them, but we got you covered.
But it's all under one banner now, which is Warmachine, and that's what I really appreciate. And that's why I really focus on calling it even Warmachine Mark IV. For me, it is one word, right? Yep. Say it together with me, Warmachine Mark IV.
That's it. Well, even now, just Warmachine, because they branded just Warmachine now.
Yeah,
mostly because they don't want people to get too hung up on the edition style.
Correct.
Right? Yeah. But again, for everyone, so the game fantastically shows up with that same feeling. People a lot of our returning players coming, they're like, oh, how much did the game change? They're like, oh, this still feels like the same game we've loved and played. Like, absolutely. The game is still there. And we're presenting it more beautifully on 3D tables and everything else. And we're bringing that back. And actually, more enforced now than we used to do before. So the game is more than just the little mouse pads and everything else, but the game is still the functional strategy game that it always has been.
Yeah, no, it's been really cool. You've run me through a couple of games. I've now played a couple of games with Peter, and I played against Chuck. Honestly, the game mechanics themselves feel so much more smooth and to a degree really intuitive, which is nice.
Yes.
And I really enjoy the aspect of it's not quite skirmish, it's not full-blown tabletop warfare, right? It's somewhere in between the two, and it adds its own level of tactics. It's really unique. Like, I can compare a lot of things to Warhammer. I can compare a lot of things to fantasy, or you can even talk about trading card games and say, oh, they're Magic-like, right? There's not a lot of things at all that are Warmachine-like. It's really unique, and I like that. And I think that really comes from, would you call it a 2d6 system?
Yeah,
when it comes to
is.
damaging, right?
Nope. Yeah, both the attack and everything is based off of 2d6, where it was like, what do you mean 2d6? Like, right? Like, yes, guys, you can just literally pull out some casino dice and just have fun and play the game.
Yeah, how many war games could you say that you only really need 2 dice to play? Right? Like, that's...
More like 3, maybe 4.
I know, but I'm
that's
still just saying, right? Like, the action-packed battles that is my War Beast versus your War Machine, we are going to be slugging it out, rolling at max 3 dice, right? And that's only because you taught it to me, because it's 2d6 plus where did I hit you?
Yep, and that's it. But also the cool part, though, is, as we talk about this between Warjacks and War Beasts, they function differently, but it's all seamless to their own style, so they carry their own strategies and the thought process. And also the aesthetics are all over the place on different the armies and everything else. So showcasing here, we have the 2-player box here, so which is showing off 2 of the factions. We have Khador, our viewpoint of America, and then we have Khador. Yes, I know people are like Khador. It's Khador. We know what it is, guys. Are more of a Russian side, but the flavor that it gives off are very interesting, and not just on what you get here, which is a great, fantastic start point. There's other little tidbits in the army that kind of scratches little itches as well. Plus, we're getting more cool stuff, actually.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. Now, I do need to pause for just a second and make sure to clarify something. You did mean Signar and Khador, right?
Correct.
Okay, just making sure, because I think you said Khador and Khador.
Well, I mean, Khador, I mean, it's all different colors, right?
Potato, right? Okay. No, when this box set came out, it was really cool. And what I didn't realize is that, for the most part, everything in it is a narrative piece, right?
Yes.
So if I pick this up, I'm going to pick it up once. But what's really appealing about that is that whether you're a new person or a veteran person who's been playing the game for a while, you have a reason to collect this. And now there's a new one coming out?
There is! So for our Chimera Dragon lovers, and then also for our Troblood lovers as well, we have Captain Foulblood versus Valix. So we have a new box coming out. There's some really cool models. The design is very interesting. I didn't expect more British 1920s, pull-out look, and then Chum looks like a gigantic shark that's wielding an anchor and just beating people with it. Okay, sure, we'll take it.
Right, and I'll be honest, I'm excited about it because I'm actually working on Chimera right now. I'm going with a kind of a crazy 80s vaporwave look, which will be fun. But something that literally just clicked while we're having this conversation is this is 2 Warmachine or Warcaster armies.
Correct.
And the other one is 2 Warlock caster armies.
Yep. So, which means that if 2 you guys get together, you're both playing very similar armies, so which you both can learn off of each other. So that way you're not having 2 conflicting kind of styles. So, but you can always, again, get into anything that looks interesting, and these are great to pick up with friends and everything else, or for demos.
Yeah, right. I was just going to say, actually, I would be really excited to try this out, and you'll help me with this. We'll get all 4 built up and do a 2v2 battle.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. And that's awesome time. You can do that, too. You can do team-based battles, bunch of cool stuff. We'll probably even showcase some of the new big models coming out very soon.
Yeah, which I've got a couple for my Orgoth already. That'll be super cool. But anyway, speaking of events and activities, I really wanted to talk to you because we have a couple of different events and activities coming up that A, you are helping run, and B, we have a lot of the community that has been talking about them, which is nice. So last Thursday, we had our first kind of discussion piece about our narrative map campaign. That's kind of like an escalation league.
Yeah.
Can you tell me more about it?
Sure. So the idea is that not so much being a competitive idea. The idea is that we're all learning the game. Both new players and returning players, and even us players who are veterans. Sometimes there's an army we haven't pulled out in forever today. Dust it off, have some fun with it. The idea is going small, building up, but having a very type of design aspect for it, so we can get some cool tables going, get some thematic play going, and push more community building and pushing the hobby side as well, right?
Yeah,
So-
for sure. Which, I'm sorry to jump in and interrupt that, but that is actually something that I found really interesting. So for me and my games, as you saw by my models earlier, is I really push for painted models, right? They don't have to be even fully painted, but models that are painted and battling on the table look infinitely better than models that are unpainted or in sub-assemblies or whatever. At the end of the day, it's your hobby. Do it the way you want to. And I want you to enjoy it. I'm simply talking from my perspective. But something that recently came out is that Steamforged Games is now holding some of the Iron Gauntlet qualifier events to a more standardized painting rubric, which is really nice in some ways, but can be daunting to others. And I really wanted to make sure that people out there, whether you're watching us or not, you have a reason to come in and still hang out with us and hobby, because we will show you how to paint and do things.
Yep, but most importantly for those, that's only applying to Steamforge's hosted, specifically Steamforge hosted competitive events.
Oh,
So
yeah,
that's
right.
for the Iron Gauntlet. So our
Yep.
casual events that we
Yeah.
host both here and maybe other places here in Michigan, you don't have to be fully painted.
Yeah.
The idea, we want butts in seats, and then we'll work on the hobby part next.
Yeah, and we want to encourage that, though. I think that's really a misleading factor in this. I think when it first came out, even when I first read it, it was very much, ooh, that's kind of oppressive, like you want to enforce this requirement, but that's not really the
No,
case.
yeah, we're not trying to gatekeep anyone.
No, and I definitely don't think that's the case at all. And so what's really nice about this is that we're going to step up and really kind of start facilitating a lot of different painting activities that are tailored towards Warmachine as well. One of the ones we're going to be working on probably next month is actually a P3 workshop.
Yep.
Right? When the new paints come out, we're going to actually have them all available. We actually have the rack on order already, which is amazing. And you'll be able to come in and try those out, which is going to be a lot of fun. But you'll actually have your Warmachine models to paint with.
Yeah, and then working alongside the narrative event, which is a bi-weekly event, we're also
Yes.
probably still do like a hobby night. Come
Yes.
out, put some models together, work on some terrain. So there's a bunch of cool stuff that we have planned, lined up, ready to go, both for the narrative aspect and for the hobby aspect of the game as well.
For sure. Yep. So essentially every Thursday, as it is right now, and it has been for quite a while, we've got a really nice Warmachine community that comes up and plays all the time. Now we're starting to hone and focus that energy and attention a little bit better to both a escalation style league every other week. So you can come in. We're going to start off at 50 points, and every 2 weeks we're going to kind of evolve that.
Yep.
And then in betweens, you can practice for, I guess, potentially more competitive style events, but also we're going to have tables reserved for hobby space.
Absolutely.
Which will be really nice. So come in, do what you want, basically, right? As long as it's Warmachine flavored for the night, join us.
Yep.
And then on top of that, we're going to be still doing monthly steamrollers.
Yes.
Is kind of the idea, right? So this Sunday coming up, actually on the 23rd, I'm going to put a little question mark there because I'm terrible with calendars unless they're in front of me. We're doing a 75-point steamroller.
Correct.
Okay, tell me a little bit about that.
So the 7-point steamroller, as some people talked about, there's 50, 75, and 100-point type of play styles that people do. 100-point is usually more reserved for more serious games. I think 75 is a fantastic way of a midpoint. You have to make real decisions about the list building aspect of it. But more importantly, for people who are trying to get things going again, we're not forcing you to spend a bunch of money to get to the 100-point aspect. We want you to get there in the middle, be comfortable with your list, have some fun, and the best way to learn from the game.
Yeah. It also, from my perspective as a new player as well, is that I found that I was able to really look and focus on the different Warcaster and Warjack first, and then add in some extra stuff, and then you hit kind of a limit. I know that's kind of the point of a so many points list, right? So you're not playing with all your toys. But what I found interesting about that is that it made me decide, okay, with this caster or warlock, I know I want to do this kind of thing. Can I do that under these requirements and situations, right? Which I thought was really interesting because I played one game with Peter like that, and then I played against Mike Arnett, which was super cool. He busted out his old Cawdor, his old miniature legacy models.
Yep.
Yeah, which was great. And just had an absolute crazy decapitation moment with the Chimera leader. What's his name? The crazy ninja lizard.
Oh, Rasik.
Yeah, Rasik. Yeah, super cool model. I love that one. And then just miraculously did exactly what you do at a casino and max dice.
There we go.
Yeah, that was nuts. So yeah, the 75-point format, like you said, is really interesting because I like the way you put 100 points is kind of the serious, right? I'm going to really tool to this kind of a thing. 50 points for our escalation league to kind of get things started. So 75 sits somewhere in the middle.
Yep.
Warhammer fans at home, this is like talking about 1,500-point games, right? Which is really cool. Nice. So what, in your opinion, you've been playing this longer than I know anybody else, what is one of the most favorite aspects of Warmachine as a whole?
Besides the community, because we've all been a pretty long-standing community, and not just here. Those of us who I've played with, God, have been playing almost since the beginning and or beginning of Mark II. So it's been 10 plus years for a lot of my friends. But the most important thing we always have loved is the lore behind the characters that we get to play with. And you 40K players are the same way, right? Like, the books that have been here forever, that we have our old school books that have been here since Mark I, and some of these characters, as in like with this book here, Kane has been here since literally the very first edition, the very first book. So this is a character that we've grown with and we've known both the story-wise and everything else. And then upcoming soon for Warmachine, we are getting the new Gravedigger army.
Which is Signar.
Yep.
Yeah.
The reason why that's interesting is because we've learned about Kane's daughter secretly for years, and now she's a caster that we get to play with. So we get to grow with these characters and have some really fun time with them.
Yeah.
So it's an awesome time for us and something that we love.
Yeah. No, it was really unique because I've come from the Warhammer background, as I have mentioned. So when you see these different named characters, they are just this character, and it's been 10,000 years, and they don't change, right? Like look at Primarch Gilliman and whatnot, right?
Right.
But what I thought was super unique with Warmachine is they literally tell you their first, their second, their third iteration, and they are different.
Oh yeah.
Right? Because as the story has progressed, they have changed. I actually started collecting with Scorn, and so I have Xerxes.
Xerxes 1?
Yeah, because he's a golden rhino.
Well, the second version is going Rhino.
Yeah.
He crippled himself and decided to get a Rhino item as his wheelchair. I'm like, okay, you win. All right.
Yeah, that was super cool. So like that's a really unique aspect from it. So, and then obviously the new models and sculpts are just amazing. The ability and freedom to paint them is nuts.
Yeah, and also going 3D printed and also being a single piece for a lot of these models, like glue, done, great.
Yep. I think the only one I've run into that's been crazy, oh god, I'm gonna butcher her name too. It's the elf chick with all the swords. Skyla or something like that?
Skyrafel?
Skyrafel, there we go.
Yep.
That one is super cool, but that was a crazy model to even look at. I'm like, how is this two pieces? like how does this link together?
There's about, I would say about 15 to 20 swords on her model. That is not a joke either, ladies and gentlemen. She's floating with them around. Yeah. So if you got.
Yeah, her swords are like Rapunzel's hair.
Yes.
There's that many of them and that long. It is super cool. Anyway, all right.
Geeking out, right?
Right. All right, so then I guess last, for me anyway, is what is something that you really wish that other people knew about Warmachine, especially with events and activities coming up?
Be a part of the community, guys. That's literally the biggest thing. So we talk a lot. We have our Discord. We talk Facebook. But just in general, being a part of this community, talking about things that you're interested in, you want to be a part of, if you're looking for, getting some more games in, if you want to learn new things. And outside of, if you can't make it inside of a store, there are some options for playing online called War Table. So there is many ways to just still be a part of the game. But never be scared to ask a question or be a part of us. Like if you can't make it out all the time, we understand. But make it out once a month, fantastic. We'll take you. Like we want you to be a part of us as much as we want to be a part of you.
Yeah, and don't forget, there's a free app. So you can download it today, test out a few lists and whatnot, and ask this guy a million questions.
Please.
Ask me
Everyone already does.
So cool. Well, thank you very much for coming on. I really appreciate it. I am very much excited to be playing more, both with my Chimera and my Orgoth. Those are going to be definitely my main focuses. The new 2-player starter set is on pre-order now. You can obviously shop that with us or hopefully other local stores if they'll be carrying it too. But obviously support your local game store, no matter where you're at.
Absolutely.
But
if you haven't checked it out, guys, come at Adepticon. There will be a keynote by Steamforged Games, and there will be redacted things talked about. Definitely keep an eye on that.
Nice. Yeah, I will be looking forward to that one because I feel like there's a lot of new things that happen all the time. There's not a lot of new things that happen within our small communities like this. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah, cool.
We'll hype it up.
Yeah. So if you can join us for the Sunday Steamroller, 75 points, right? Even if you don't have anything, stop in and watch the games being played. Talk to the players in the community, and let's get some painted models on the table too. So
Absolutely.
nice. Cool. Coming up next week, we're going to be talking, other tabletop miniature games like Conquest and more Old World and 30K, and of course Warhammer 40K. And we're going to talk about more of the events and activities that we have planned here at Golden Rhino Games. But for tonight, I'm Ian. This has been Isaiah or Zeke, and we will see you guys next time. Thank you very much. Bye.